Yasu, it's the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Cheshire Impact on a mission to help maximize your use of marketing automation and CRM, CheshireImpact.com. Bam. Now, I'm so excited to introduce today's guest. She is not even in the country right now. She is overseas. She is in Greece at the moment, living the life and crushing it in business meetings and all sorts of things going on. She is Rebecca Lieb. And before I let you say hi, I got to just let people know who you are. Founding partner and analyst at Kaleido Insights, author, which we're going to talk about your killer books, I believe. And then also, you recently bought a house in Europe. So, Rebecca, welcome.
Casey, it's such an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, awesome. And, and if there's any delays or whatnot, and it's sounding pretty good right now, but it's amazing how we can be speaking across. I don't know if we're going up or we're going under the water and across the cable, but somehow we're communicating.
It just magically works. And that's why we can be digital natives these days and take advantage of time and space differentials that no longer count for anything. We don't even have to pay for a long distance call. Remember, it's long distance. Get off the phone.
Get off the phone. $5 an hour to call Greece. Nope, not anymore. Man. Well, thank you so much for joining here. We were chatting earlier, the theme for this month around that maturity model for marketing automation is, before you start clicking and building things and doing the activities, you really have to have a strategy. And so this month, it's all about content marketing, content strategy. Do we gate content? Don't we? Those type of topics. It's all around using content, being a thought leader. And what better? You've got the book on it, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but I wanted to give you a chance to, right off the bat, smash some myths. Are there some goofy strategies out there or just beliefs people have that you just need to correct right off the bat?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that, and I've got dozens of them. But one of the top of my list ones is the more content, the better. Content marketers or wannabe content marketers are running around with their hair on fire going, we got to make more content. It's sort of like, got to make the donut. Remember that commercial?
Yeah, got to make the donuts.
More volume. And it's not volume. When I surveyed marketers a couple of years ago and I said, what is your biggest content want for the year? They all said, more content, faster, greater velocity, greater volume. But then when I said, what is your biggest content need, which is totally different from a want, they said, we need better measurement and better audience targeting. Yet, what they want more content. So I say that's like going to the store for bread and coming back with milk. If you really know what you need, don't, follow your instincts and just do the more without that strategic what and how.
I love that because I have officially been off grocery store duty since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. Even now, no one lets me go to the store because I won't just come back with milk. I'll come back with Twix, Oreos, all these other things. So it's not filling up your shopping cart with all these little goofy content pieces or even a lot of great content. It's quality over quantity is really the message.
Absolutely. Take your time. Think it through, and then you'll have a sustainable strategy. The people who just want more, they burn out.
Right.
Anybody will burn out. You just can't be a content factory with no idea behind that content, no goal, no notion of who's going to create it, who's going to approve it, how it's going to even work.
I think back to when I had a little tiny baby and you can teach them sign language before they can speak. And so one of the easiest ones is more, and it's basically touching your fingers together like that. But then kids just get into that thing where they're like, more, and you get the cutest videos on the internet where kids are like, more, please, and we're saying, don't be that toddler with your content, but how much is enough or of that? So, okay, we know it's quality, but is that 3 pieces of quality, or is there a number that you can wrap your hands around? How do we know I have
No, there isn't.
No? Okay.
Everybody's got different needs. Unfortunately, the answer to a whole bunch of stuff in marketing is it depends.
It depends.
That's why you've got to, well, it's true. And that's why you've got to, I work with lots of individual brands, and that's why you go in and you do your discovery, you do your fact finding, you unpack those needs, and then you experiment with a velocity. You're never going to get it right off the bat. One of the things I think that keeps marketers from developing a content strategy is they think the minute they write it down, it's like the 10 Commandments. It's immutable. It's going to be there for centuries and you can never change it. You know what? You can change it, but at
Interesting.
least you've got that basic fundamental map that so that you know where you're going. And you can change. You test, you learn, you change, you adjust, like that
Right.
Facebook motto, fail fast and move on. You're
Yeah.
allowed to do that in content marketing too. But unless you have that documentation and that rigor of analysis, you're not going to know what's succeeding and what's failing. So you'll just keep churning out more and more and more and more and more, like a duck with its feet under the water,
Yeah.
and burn it or
Huh.
flame it.
Oh, so that I guess it depends, but then is one? I guess you can't. Can we answer that in some shape or form? It's one or two
So,
or three. Or
here's
what?
a really good example of, and I have a content marketing maturity scale too, and it
Yeah.
goes from standing still to walking to jogging to running. It's
Okay.
that kind of. And walking is when you're just experimenting. So there is a company in upstate New York, and they make supplies for chemicals for soldering. I don't know anything about
Interesting.
this. I'm sure you don't know anything about
No.
this. Nobody listening to this knows anything about chemicals for soldering.
Right now, someone's
But
saying, "Wait a minute, I do." And you're like, "Okay, you're the only one. Be quiet."
it's not a priority on my radar. But they have all these PhD scientists working for them, and their head
Sure.
of marketing, a guy by the name of Rick Short, decided as an experimental content strategy, he was going to get all of those scientists blogging about chemicals for soldering.
Okay.
He launched, I believe it was 76 individual blogs. And 76 wasn't a random number. He keyed it
76.
to their top keywords on Google. And by the way, then he translated it into a bunch of languages, like 5 or 6. So it was 76 times 5. I can't even do that math in my head. This is a lot of blogs.
And that's not a
But
blog post. That's a blog.
blog,
It's like a magazine
right?
specific for that keyword,
Standalone
that key
blog.
phrase. That's
But
crazy.
it was the only way they could figure out what was
Yeah.
going to work. And
Yeah.
the minute they found out what people would salute out once they rounded up the flagpole, they killed all those other blogs and they kept going with the ones that were successful.
Oh,
But
okay.
if you don't experiment, you don't know which ones are going to work. Now, that
True.
might be a larger scale mass experiment than most marketers are willing to take on.
Sure.
But it turned those scientists who were doing the successful blogs into celebrities. They started getting speaking gigs all over the world. They started traveling, and they were greeted by people in their industry as heroes from abroad.
Yes.
It really raised the company's profile. And it raised the company's sales. So they weren't just measuring traffic, which is a publisher metric, not
Right.
a marketer's metric. They were measuring results.
Now that publisher thing, we were chatting earlier. I think that's another myth you wanted to smash about publishing.
Yeah, that's the other thing that goes, so it correlates with this quantity thing. So
Sure.
content marketers tend to measure clicks, visits, time spent on page. All
Yep.
that stuff really matters if you're a publisher and you're trying to tell potential advertisers, well, our publication's valuable, people like
Right.
it, they hang out here. Doesn't matter to marketers. These are all nice to haves. It's nice to know people like your content, but you need to correlate that into business results. Do
Yes.
they convert? And a conversion is a desired action. So if you say, read a few blog posts and then maybe you can order a white paper about this, but there's an exchange of your email address so that we can market to
Sure.
you. Do they do that? Does it shorten the sales cycle? Does it bring in more desirable leads? So that time spent on page is one thing, but then there's ROI trackable content metrics.
Yes.
Does it lead to sales, higher consideration? Does it lead to better mind share? Does it lead to better search results? There are so many dozens and dozens and dozens of metrics that matter that content marketers can't and shouldn't just concentrate on clicks and likes and all that nice to have stuff that doesn't directly correlate into business results.
Oh, that time on page is one of my it just gets me all frustrated when people, because that could either be, yes, they're reading your page, or that could be they can't find anything on your site and
Mhm.
they're lost.
You could look at bounce rate too, but
You
you've
could.
got to look at what that means. Do people who
Yes.
spend more time on the page then convert more? You can measure this stuff, but you have to, and then this goes back to a strategy, make a plan to measure it and to relate those metrics to what matters to you internally.
Right. It's not just those fuzzy interstitial metrics. Those are nice. If you want to track them, great, but it's revenue. It's tying it to the deal at the end.
Yeah, but now that all said, I'm going to give you an example of tying visits to business results
Hmm.
because you can take it one half a step further and correlate to business
Yeah,
results.
interesting.
So I was talking to the head of community at Sony Europe, and he was doing what good content marketers do and expending a little shoe leather walking around, this large
Sure.
company,
Yep.
talking to people about what's going on in your department, looking for a little inspiration. That's how you create more good content.
Totally.
He talked to the head of their customer care department, and she told him that they were getting an unusually high volume of calls because people were having trouble with some button on some new Sony TV. Very simple fix, but people kept calling in and saying, "What do I do about this?" So we went back to his desk and he wrote a couple paragraphs about what to do with the button. And that little piece of text got something like 35,000 views in the first week.
Wow.
That's raw visits, right?
Yeah.
But you could tell that people were searching for what do I do with the button on the CX29 or whatever the TV
Sure.
set was called. Go a step further. Every time somebody calls the Sony Center in Europe, it costs €7. That correlates to roughly $7, give or take. 35,000 times 7 is how much money? That's like roughly in my
Wait, wait,
head about
wait. Every time they call, it
$1,000.
costs the company
Sure.
$7 to receive that call. So not
Oh, yeah,
$7,
call
seven
center
euros.
€7, which is
Wow.
maybe $8. So that a call center is always an expense. Most
Yes.
companies want people to do self-service on the web. So instead of just correlate that with visits, correlate that with numbers, make an intelligent guess that we've just diverted 35,000 calls to, and that's just in the first week. This continued over a period of several
Oh,
weeks or
that's
months.
cool.
And then you've got a dollars and cents number you can take upstairs and say, give me more money for my content program because we're diverting calls from a very costly channel into an almost free channel.
I love that. I got my little calculator out on the computer while you're saying that. It's roughly 24,500 euros. So what's
Yeah, a
that
week.
in dollars? That's
Mhm.
significant
From a piece of content that
from a
was,
piece of
two
content.
paragraphs that took the guy
Yeah.
like 10 minutes to
And
write,
people
right?
would
Yeah.
they'd prefer to search it, because if I can find the answer quickly online, I do not want to call some gigantic
You
corporate.
don't want to
They don't want
call,
you to
be on
call.
hold,
You don't want, yeah,
your
hold,
serial number. Yeah,
navigate.
nobody wants that.
We don't want to. So we'd love to do the web if you give us the option. Yeah.
Yeah, but back to that core lesson,
Sure.
it's not the number of visits, it's correlating those visits into money and then knowing the value of your content.
That's interesting. So
And
that
that's that's math I can almost do in my head, and I'm not very good at math.
yes. I was just doing some math with the daughter this morning. The new math. It's crazy, but
I
that's
don't even want to.
interesting. Yeah. So it's a reminder to not just track the end result, but track along the way, because there may be some,
Convert it to business
yeah,
results. That's what your boss and your boss's boss wants to know. How is it helping the business?
yes, justify the expense, justify the
Uh-huh.
investment, all of that. I love that.
Hmm.
You start out by just saying, don't be a publisher, but then look at the big picture, look at the end result, but then also, I mean, that's almost like a business analyst decision you were talking about. Someone who is smart going, okay, look, if they went to this site, then they didn't call the number. There's no direct app connecting those, but you would have to think and realize that you're saving legitimate money for the company by doing that.
You are. And, it is also a fair assumption that the casual internet surfer is not, browsing how to fix a button on a TV they don't even own rather than a kitten video or
Right,
something.
right. Yeah, they're on YouTube wasting away, but they're not searching on
Exactly.
Sony's site. Huh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Why would you
that's
go there
fascinating.
unless you have a problem. But there are plenty of other content metrics. So if you're interested in share of voice, is your content increasing your share of voice over the competitions?
Now, what
That's
is
got
that? What is share of voice?
so, maybe a town, I'm from Chicago and I'm not a sports fan, so I can't get too deep into this, but there's two baseball teams, the
No
Cubs and
worries.
the Sox. Maybe the Cubs want more share of voice than the White Sox or vice versa.
Sure.
When you've got a competitor out there who's really killing it and you want to take over some thought leadership, that's share of voice. And that leads to better brand consideration, for example. Another great example of content is how it can help you, especially when it's interactive, develop and bring products to market more quickly and efficiently.
Sure.
So Domino's Pizza in Australia developed an app where people could create their own pizza. If you think of what a pizza is, it's a limited universe of ingredients, right?
Sure.
You got your tomato, sausage, mushrooms, onions, whatever. It's pretty finite.
Sure.
And they could also name their pizzas and publish them to the app. Every time somebody ordered their pizza, the creator got a cut, like a 10% commission.
No way.
But it's also a way for Domino's to see what the most popular pizzas were.
Yeah.
And the most popular user-generated pizzas became part of the permanent menu.
Wow.
So the correlation, the business math behind that is how much time would Domino's have spent in a test kitchen experimenting
Right.
and, doing user feedback and blah, blah, blah. This way, at very little cost, they were able to have all these new pizzas created and tested by the crowd and therefore augment their menu. So that's product development.
I wonder which one won. Yeah, somebody got rich off of...
It wasn't just one, it was several.
several.
So, I'd have to go down to Australia to check that one out. So I'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah, get back to me on that one. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, there's some really good combos out there. But to your point, rather than paying a study group, and sometimes those groups are just echo chambers for the first person to say something. So people can vote where their stomachs.
Your product group and the HIPAA, the highest paid person in the room, always has veto power.
Yes.
Who knew that Australians really wanted pizza with gross ingredients, in my opinion, like pineapple on them, but I'm not saying they did. I have no idea.
Are you saying you're anti-pineapple on pizza?
I am anti-pineapple on
okay.
pizza.
That's okay. My 4-year-old would disagree with you, but I'm somewhere in the middle.
Maybe when I was 4, things would have been different.
Yeah. So this gets to strategy, right? The idea of planning things out. And I know we were chatting earlier about the difference between content marketing and content strategy, and how sometimes probably even ties back to the quantity.
People conflate those two terms all the time, and there's a difference. Content strategy is deciding what kind of content you're going to publish, why, and how. It's in architecture, it's the blueprint. Why and how. So it's what are our goals? What are we going to do to meet those goals? And how are we going to execute? Who do we need to hire? What software do we need to invest in? How are we going to publish? How are we going to find our target audience? What channels and medium are we going to publish in? Is it going to be text? Is it going to be video? Is it going to be SlideShare? Is it going to be a combination of all of those things? Also, how are we going to repurpose content? Anybody with a journalism background knows that you can't reinvent the wheel every day. You need to keep taking, so for example, you have a blog post that's turned into a video, that's turned into a speech, or your company does a live event. You can harvest enough content out of a 2-day conference to keep going for 6 months if you plan it out carefully. If you hire the videographer, the bloggers, the journalists to be there and to ensure that the content is captured.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even this podcast, we tweet afterward some of the best quotes out there on social. I know I like to write LinkedIn posts afterward, sharing my biggest takeaway. And to your point, just using that content in different ways, because some people, they want to receive it. Like, this is even going to be on YouTube for the people that prefer to watch us talking instead of hearing us talk,
Absolutely. And we all know that there's, I've been a journalist, but I've also been an editor and a publisher. Those are very different roles, even though they're very, very closely intertwined.
Okay. So
got to be looking at the big picture, and that is the content strategist.
And then once you do that, you shift to content marketing, or is that a subset or a part of it?
Content marketing is execution. It's the
Execution.
doing it every day, the
Got
doing
it.
it on the ground. But content marketing has to be based on a content strategy, just like social media marketing has to be based on a social media strategy. It's exactly like every single internet thing that is every channel that's ever come down the pike. Years ago, it was build a website, get your neighbor's nephew to do it because he's 15
Yeah.
HTML. That was not a strategy.
Right.
And then social email marketing came, search marketing came. It was all hire somebody with technical expertise, but
Right.
never with the oversight. Content marketing is the same thing. 5 years ago, people were saying, well, lots of journalists are out of work because of this internet thing. Hire a
Right.
journalist and your content marketing needs are met. They'll blog for you. Well, guess what? Content marketing isn't just writing. And as a former journalist, I have nothing but respect for the trade. It's video, it's photography, it's graphic design, it's maybe understanding infographics,
Sure.
it's apps, it's visual, it's audio visual. So just this one discrete skill set is almost certainly not enough anymore. The internet is multimedia.
So it's almost like instead of being the journalist writing for the paper, you're the publisher of the magazine, of the thinking of what kind of content, what kind of medium, what kind of displays and
Mhm.
graphics do we need here and there, instead of being so focused on one of those elements.
One channel or
One
one
channel.
means of communication. And a publisher is, of course, always looking at the bottom line and saying, is this meeting our goals? Is this
Right.
keeping the lights on? Publishers have mouths to feed. Publishers need to make a profit. And
Right.
so think of publisher, content strategist, or if not a publisher, a producer. Same
Ooh, I
thing.
like that. Producer.
Mhm.
It's like the producer's show on Broadway.
Yeah, but you've got obligations.
Yes. Yes. Big picture. You know what? It never hurts to do a little bit of planning ahead of time. Winging it.
Exactly. Otherwise, you just
Yeah.
burn out. We even saw that pre-internet with corporate newsletters. People would spend months planning one. They would put everything, including the kitchen sink, into the first edition, and then when it was
Right.
time for the next issue, they're like, "Now what?"
In that remind I'm a big fan, not the opposite. I'm not a fan of newsletters.
Hmm.
In favor of something like marketing automation. People, to your point, they put their best content in the first three or four. And in fact, you'd appreciate this, having been in media for so long. I wrote for a local New Hampshire magazine. It was like a travel tourism magazine, just for fun while I was in college. And New Hampshire, we're a small state. We're not the biggest state. If you're in Iowa, you're that much bigger than we are. So
Not as densely populated.
not as densely populated, but there's the ocean. We're near Boston. There's some great stuff in New Hampshire. But after about a year and a half of writing for this thing, you really try to figure out what is there next to write about here in New Hampshire. All your best content,
Uh-huh.
all your best headlines and taglines and lead-ins, they all happened already. And so you end up, anyone that gets your magazine next, I remember toward the end, it was writing about the model train museum. That was all we had. And so,
But
you know,
you've got to bucket it. Think
yeah.
about the New York Times. I mean, I have lived in New York for most of my life. So Monday is sports, and Tuesday is science, and Wednesday is
Huh.
cooking, and Thursday is, let's see, the home, furniture and decor. Friday is entertainment. So
Where is this, online or the actual paper itself?
it's the actual paper itself, but there's a different special section every day of the week that
Really?
focuses.
I didn't
So
know
it's not
that.
that they have to come up with entertainment content, 7 days a week,
Right.
unless there's really big breaking news, of course.
Right.
If Steven Spielberg died, they wouldn't wait till Friday to tell you. But, Friday is logically when people are making plans for the weekend. So that's when all the theater and film reviews come out. For example, content marketers have to think in the same cadence.
I like
And
it.
that enables the content producers to think, well, Monday we'll do an interview with a top executive in the field. Tuesday we'll focus on a product feature that people might not know about or might need more explanation about. Wednesday, we'll focus on industry trends in general. Thursday, we'll focus on something fun and entertaining just for the people who are,
Right.
in it for the fun. This is all for instance, but
Right.
if you don't start bucketing content and making an editorial calendar and making a plan, you're going to fall down.
That's interesting. I like that rotation. That does help keep things fresh by doing it that way. I also tied to that love the idea with marketing automation. I know we were chatting about this too. The idea of putting your best content. It's almost like creating your best newsletter in a series of emails or series of your best content. And every time
Mm-hmm.
someone signs up or gets into the flow, they get the best thing you've written and the next best thing you've written and the next best thing.
Sequential. You're building a
Sequential.
story and you're
Yeah.
building a relationship. We were talking the other day, and I told you that one of my biggest quibbles with marketing automation is the word automation, because
Yes.
it sounds like you buy the thing, you plug it in, and then you go, on a permanent coffee break because it's just going to keep
All right, we're
chugging
going on
away
a
for you.
cruise. We got the tool. We're
Got to
going.
Exactly, but you've got to feed that thing with content.
You do.
That's why I say my book is called "The Content is the Atomic Particle of Marketing," because without content, there's no marketing automation, there's no email, there's no ads, there's no websites. It's all just empty squares and rectangles and videos.
Yes, let's get into this. The Atomic
Yeah.
Particle of Marketing. The cover is super cool. I just finished a great sci-fi book, so I'm all locked in on science and physics, and my dad tweets daily on physics, and so the
Oh,
Atomic
cool.
Particle of Marketing. What does that mean? That content is the atomic particle?
It means no content, no marketing. Very, very simple. Even
I
in
like that.
advertising, we call content creative because it's more expensive. It's still content. Content is what populates your channel or your medium. So even in marketing automation, which is all about communicating with people after they come to your website, after they take certain actions, you can't communicate without that content, which is why
Right.
marketing automation users, people have to have that content strategy. And guess what? That content strategy has to correlate and connect with all the other content your marketing department is
Right.
doing. Because we live in such a multi channel universe, the whole world is like Times Square right now.
Yeah.
So if your brand looks and feels and smells and tastes different in marketing automation than it does in print or display or YouTube or anything, people aren't going to recognize or connect the dots between your brand here and your brand over there on Facebook, on Twitter, on TV, anywhere else.
Right. Right. If
It's a
it's not
continuum.
congruent across all those channels, there's a miss. But I love that quote earlier, the or that phrase, no content, no marketing. Like how simple is
It's
that? It's true. I
well,
support that
yeah.
100%.
You've got kids, like that thing with the white page. It's a snowman in a blizzard, right?
Yeah.
That's what everything would be without content. The proverbial snowman in a blizzard.
Oh, yeah, I think I saw that on Facebook the other day. It was just a white picture, and it was like, yeah, this is New England in the
Yeah.
wintertime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So even
So
even you guys don't want wintertime all the time.
true. I like to say it's character building to get snow every now and then, and being in New York all the time, you're no softy, but those folks down south, with no snow that often,
Yeah.
I
Well,
gotta
I grew
wonder.
up in Chicago, so
Oh,
I'm
you
up there with the
definitely had in
best of.
Chicago,
Yeah.
yeah. So the book in the line below is a definitive guide to content marketing strategy, which we just have freaking talked about. Where do you start? You don't have to give away the whole book. People, you gotta go get this on Amazon. Content, the atomic particle of marketing. But what's the start? Like, kind of give us a taste for this. When you're getting okay, I got to do marketing strategy because they said no content, no marketing, and I know you could take it again. You could say no content strategy, no content. So take it.
Mhm.
So how do I get started on the content strategy?
So, one of the first things to understand, and I think this is pretty much where my book starts out, is kind of about the decline or the demise of advertising. Advertising
Oh,
isn't going away. Advertising has been with us for a long time, and it will continue to be with us for a long time.
no doubt.
But it's working less well. particularly online. And, publishers will happily tell you otherwise because it's their job to. But if ads were so great, they wouldn't be getting less expensive. We
Right.
wouldn't be riddled with ad fraud, lacks of
10 cents
transparency.
per million.
Yeah, right. So it is incumbent on brands to find out what will work, what will cut through the noise, cut through the clutter, cut through the banner blindness. I'm tripping over my tongue. Cut through the ad blockers and really connect with their customers. And what we've learned being in an interactive environment is you can't just cut off people's experience as you can in print or in broadcast and say,
Sure.
you can continue doing what you were doing after this message from our sponsors. People are unwilling to do that. So we're moving from a push form of marketing to a pull form of marketing, and it's the marketing of attraction. Being there when people want and need you, being there when they don't know what to do with that TV button. And you're the person who has the TV button, not everybody else. So I divide content marketing into 3 different buckets overwhelmingly. There's content that informs and educates. So maybe you're selling something highly technical or a car with a long consideration cycle.
Sure.
So this is helping people through a buying cycle. Maybe content that says, if your sofa is 10 feet away from the wall, then your flat screen TV should be this big.
Oh.
There's also content that entertains. Think of your favorite viral videos.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff that you watch and laugh at and pass along, and hopefully people remember your brand, but they tune in because they love it.
So true. There's this Mountain Dew commercial. Clearly, I'm a target. Sometimes I wear a Mountain Dew shirt to the gym because nothing says working out like wearing a shirt that sponsors sugar.
Sugar, exactly.
But there's this ridiculous Mountain Dew commercial, this guy with a beard and some silly shirt, and he's drinking the Mountain Dew, and it's got a cool song. And I remember Shazamming that or Googling it, and then after it was done playing, another commercial was on, and then I surprised the missus by playing the ad again on my phone because I wanted to see. It was so hilarious. I wanted to so to your point, pulling, and it's just fun and
pulling,
entertaining.
attracting, yeah. And then the third type of content, most people don't think of this one, but I call it utility content. So think of content that helps you perform a task. This is very often mobile. So a weight loss calculator, or a mortgage calculator, or a automatic bank deposit, things that remove friction. One of my very favorite examples of this, and I've been using it for years, but it's just too good, is Charmin developed Yelp for public bathrooms, and it's called Sit or Squat. And users rate public restrooms based on criteria like accessibility and cleanliness and length of line. And, we laugh because it's hilarious.
Yeah,
we've all been, right? Like, where's the nearest bathroom, and is it gross? And that's so congruent with Charmin as a brand. What could you do with your toilet paper? That's what you do with your toilet paper.
Yes. Now, would videos,
paper could do it.
Would videos that teach you something fit into that, or is that?
I would say videos that teach you something fall into the educational or informational. So how do I install this? How do I open my computer and replace the memory or something like that? But, things can cross over. You don't have to totally fit in the lines. It's just to give people an example of what you can do. And very often the products that you would think would fit in one category can go into another. So IBM did for their mainframe computer division. So mainframe computers, you're never going to buy one. I'm never going to buy one. They did a funny series of webisodes based on The Office.
Sure.
The Office. And so it was this whole send-up of corporate and office life, because you know what? The people who buy mainframe computers have a sense of humor too.
Yeah.
So surprising and delightful in a way that you wouldn't expect. And that's what
cool.
hooks you in.
So those 3 are educational, entertainment, and utility?
Exactly. You got it.
That. So those 3 things to look at. Yeah, right? Quick study. Paying attention.
And there's no reason to limit yourself to one. You can mess around until you find the formula that's right for you. But very often, a product that's very delicate or sensitive will go with entertaining. And one example of that, and I'm sure you've probably seen it, is you've seen this new product, or relatively new, called the Squatty Potty.
Is this the unicorn?
It's the unicorn because it's
Yeah.
perfect for content marketing, right? Because you
Yeah.
can't really talk about it because it's kind of gross and embarrassing. And
Do you want to describe it for people
unicorns and
listening, or do you want me to?
ice cream. So yeah, so it's this thing that some people believe that if you squat rather than sit, that it's healthier for your daily evacuation needs. So this company manufactures a device that you can sit around your toilet and squat on. I can't believe I'm saying this on video.
Yes.
So how are you going to market that? They did a video about unicorns pooping rainbows and
Yes.
Prince Charming, and it's gotten
And it's
millions
soft
and millions
serve. It's rainbow. The unicorn was pooping
rainbow
soft serve ice
soft
cream.
serve.
It's just the most wrong
Absolutely.
thing ever. But when you mentioned 4 words of it, I immediately said unicorn because I remember.
Yeah. And so it's just an absolutely delightful, entertaining, and very viral way of talking about something that let's just stop talking about it.
I know, right?
I haven't got a unicorn to talk about, right?
So we have those 3 in mind. Where do you then take it next? And maybe this even ties into, rather than you reciting your whole book, does this tie into the maturity model, or how do we progress? Or does the progression happen after the strategy?
After walk, and that's that experimental, like let's launch 75 blogs and see what works. Then you get rigorous. Then you have a better idea of what works, and you really start applying metrics and goals around the content that you do. So just because this is, a show that focuses on marketing automation, I'm going to give you an example from marketing automation. A friend of mine used to be the head of marketing at Eloqua.
Okay. Yeah.
This is just when they were starting out with content marketing. And just to give him a shout out, his name is Joe Chernoff. He's no longer with the company.
Oh, we know Joe. We quote him all the time.
Joe. Yeah, he's wonderful. So Joe decided to publish a bunch of books on digital marketing. It was for lead generation purposes. And he decided he needed to measure this for efficacy, but he didn't know what to measure. They'd never done this before. So he decided that his target audience was vice president. He didn't care if they were vice president of technology or of human resources, or as long as it was VP, it was good with Joe. So they tracked the downloads of all of these books as to how many vice presidents downloaded them. Then they tracked the VP title in the sales cycle. Now you've got to build in these tracking mechanisms, and you've got to capture that information on your lead gen form.
Right.
But Joe able to attribute, I think it was $9 or $10 million worth of sales because Eloqua sales cycle, in the first, I think it was 2 quarters. And guess what? That's a good enough result to get more staff, more resources, more everything.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't know what to track. So VP was a good starter metric. But that's when you're jogging. That's when you're starting to develop some discipline around content marketing, apply metrics, apply goals, and get results. And again, you don't start by knowing universal truths about things, but you have to know at least, what to start with.
Right. And you learn some of that from testing too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listening to amazing podcasts.
Yeah. My next phase in a maturity model is to start to develop what I call a culture of content. And that's very important. So remember earlier I was talking about Sony and how this guy went out into the company, starts talking to his colleagues about, what are you thinking about? What are your customers doing? The marketing department is not the alpha and omega of content. Every outward-facing division, and this might be product, it might be research, it might be sales, HR, recruitment, they're talking to your customers, your prospects, maybe future employees. They know better than marketing does what people think about their products.
Oh, yeah.
What the resistance is, what the features are that are drawing them in. Get out and talk to these people like a reporter, shoe leather, go find out and reward people for contributing. Some companies, the
Yeah.
greatest content marketers, like Frank Eliazon from Citibank, they were in customer service and just started helping people digitally. And that's how you have content be this sort of, like the oil that fuels the whole machine, because
Right.
content doesn't just help marketing. And this is an important thing for content marketers to share. It can make everybody's job easier. So we saw how content can help make a product person's job easier by learning what features, what benefits people want in new products. It
Sure.
can help recruitment and retention. There's a great example of ESPN moved out of New York into much more suburban part of Connecticut.
Interesting.
So they had to recruit a whole bunch of people in Connecticut and also convince existing employees to take a
Right.
very big lifestyle leap.
Oh,
They
yeah.
started a website made up of CNN employees talking about the benefits of living in that area of Connecticut,
Okay.
why life was good there, and they were able to both recruit new people and get the people they wanted to move from New York. Not everybody, but that's content, and it's content for a business goal.
Yeah, I like that.
Maybe you
Content
want
doesn't just help
exec-
out marketing, right?
no, maybe you want executives to have more exposure, more mind share,
Yeah.
or the PR department wants executives to be quoted in the press more often. Get the executives out there, give them a voice, give them a platform, so that when it comes to thought leadership, they can make that impact. So content is a universe. It's not just marketing.
Right. And you can make that many more friends if you're helping other people out with their, you help them out with this content. They tell you things you didn't even know. I remember one experience I had when I was a young marketing manager at a small company, and the new guy, sales, who is this guy? Who is this Casey Chesh
Mhm.
over here? And I had a chance to ask them, and they allowed me to join them to listen into their sales calls when they were calling the leads that the system that I
That
inherited
is great.
giving them.
That is such a great knocking
Yeah,
down of that wall that divides sales from marketing, because
absolutely.
they should be friends and help each other. Even large brands, retail stores very often want their sales associates to help with content. They're in the
Mm.
front lines. They know what the objections are, the problems. I worked with Home Depot a few years ago. I don't know if you know this, but the people who work in their plumbing department, they're expert plumbers. The people who work in the electric department, they're expert electricians.
Oh, it
They know
follows.
more than
That's great.
we do about those
Oh, yeah.
topics. So excellent content producers, not just telling the customers one-on-one on the sales floor, but giving suggestions, helping with DIY projects.
Well, I had a question about that then, because a lot of times people want to hire a content agency to write for them, but to your point, your frontline staff, your leadership, your internal team are the subject matter experts. So how do you blend that? Do you support that idea? How
You
does that
gotta blend it. Yeah.
blend it?
So very often you need that professional outside help because you don't have enough internal resources, because maybe you don't have the technical skills that a film production house or a
Sure.
video production house would have. But I advise my clients about outsourcing everything completely without having some dedicated staff in house, because otherwise you're just handing things over to handlers.
Yeah.
And a lot of these organizations are very, very, very good, but it does turn into, as it often does with PR, and I'm sure marketers who have worked with PR firms know this, garbage in, garbage out. So if
Yeah.
you're not really working with somebody who's got a close ally in the company and working as partners rather than outsourced providers. This is not your plumber or your electrician. These are people speaking on your behalf. There's got
Right.
to be very, very, very close collaboration.
I like the interview approach where you have that person who's good at writing, good at grammar, they can put the piece together, and you know the topic, and they interview that expert, either that plumber on the floor or the leader, taking 30 minutes out of his day to answer these questions. The best way the whole company could answer them is how that CEO might answer them. And then they take that and write it up and craft it, but they weren't
Mhm.
creating the tech. They weren't answering the question. They were sort of, formulating it together as opposed in polishing it as opposed to creating it from scratch.
Exactly. And also hiring people who have domain expertise, and you're going to have to pay for that.
Yeah,
So,
that
for
gets
example,
pricey.
last year with one of the biggest manufacturers of dental equipment in the world, of all things. But that's highly specialized. So when they developed a content program that I helped them to develop, they hired a trade industry writer to help do it, who knows about all of these tools and all of these machines. And it's a
Right.
whole universe of stuff out there.
Right.
And,
But that's
just
pricey though, right? Because there's not
the
too many of those type of people. Are there? Or?
Okay, well, if you're hiring a nuclear physicist, it's maybe going to be pricier. There are
Sure.
scales of pricey, of course,
Yes.
but you don't. And there are some people who are very, very quick studies. But hiring people who know your subject matter and who know your industry, who know the pain points, who know the issues, maybe they're legislative or environmental, always helps. And my most recent piece of research that I published last month, I think, is about global content marketing. So you can't expect, if your headquarters are in the United States, that your issues, your problems, your customers are going to be identical to people in Europe, in Asia, in South America. So multinational companies face problems that are cultural, that are linguistic, but it's not just
Right.
translated. So if you just look at internet issues, privacy laws in the United States are so different than they are anywhere else in the world. You just can't talk about things the same way.
Yeah, that would be a mistake. And I remember working at a similar company where it was owned by a company in Europe, and they sent us the marketing to send out to the U.S. And you could fill the whole website with stories like this, but one of them was Happy Mayberry Day or Happy Hollyberry Day.
Sure.
I don't even remember. I was like, is this a holiday? You really want us to send out?
I'll give you one of my favorite ones. So this is even almost pre-internet. I was handling global marketing for, among other broadcast stations, the SciFi channel.
Oh,
and we went around the world and we showed people the logo. And in those days, it was the Saturn with the ring around it that said SciFi. And everywhere in the world, people got it. It was like, science fiction. Now, science fiction means different things in different countries, but they all got the idea of science fiction until we showed it to Italians, and they were looking at it and going, skiing and Formula One racing.
Really? Like FI, Formula One.
FI, Formula One. What else could that possibly be?
And Sci, it was somehow skiing.
Skiing, yeah. You can't argue with it. But
no, you can't. You're not going to educate the whole country. You just got to modify. What'd you change it to for Italy?
I don't remember what we did. It's been a few years.
No
but I'll
worries.
give you a more example. I was working with a major technology company just a year or two ago, and they had very excitedly bought rights to American football.
Okay.
And NFL stuff. And they excitedly sent it to markets all over the world saying, look what we get to use in our marketing this year. Now, the United States is the only country where football is an oval ball, not a round ball.
Yes.
Everybody else was
confuses everyone.
WTF. And after WTF, it's like, how are we going to even market this year? Because we can't use any of that. It's relevant.
Ouch. What happened? They already ate that cost, right?
Yeah, different regions had to do different things, but it threw everything into an adhocracy.
Right. Yeah. I would just take a camera, go out to the local playground and get a couple, photos of kids playing actual soccer, football.
Which
there's your replacement. It didn't cost you $1 million sponsorship of the NFL.
Yeah.
And I think the other story is that car, the Nova, right? The Nova
doesn't go.
So, hey, this car doesn't go. Why would I buy this?
Yeah, or it was Coke adds life, which meant in China, Coke brings your ancestors back from the dead.
No. It's like Red Bull has wings, but oh man, how did that play out in China?
Yeah, but on the other hand, so Red Bull, you raise, they're at my pinnacle of content marketing
Oh
maturity. So
yeah.
my pinnacle
Yeah, tell us about
maturity, just
the end. Yeah.
the end, and this is very aspirational. Very, very, very few companies will ever achieve it or
Sure.
even want to achieve it. But it is getting so freaking good at content that you can sell your content for money.
Oh,
So
I
your
love that.
content becomes a revenue stream. And Red Bull has magazines, they have recording studios, they license their footage of extreme sports for broadcast. There's even a
Wow.
B2B site you can go on for Red Bull to license their clips. Coca-Cola has sold some content. There are some other brands. Macy's created what's that story called? Miracle on 34th Street. They created a video of that was actually broadcast on air. And of course, it relates to Macy's because the
Sure.
classic story is all about, the Santa at Macy's on Christmas. Not a lot of brands are ever going to get there, but I do
No.
want to point out that one small brand has gotten there.
Okay.
And I'm sure many of your listeners or viewers know this. The Blend Tech.
Oh, the Will It
Blanked on the
Blend? Are those the blend guys?
Yes, Will It
Yeah.
Blend, the guy who drops the iPhone in the blender and the
Oh,
shoe in
cringe.
the blender and
Yeah.
the iPad in the blender. So even though those videos are on the internet and you can watch them all for free at any time, go on their website. They're selling DVDs of that stuff because people like them that much. So you don't
Wow.
have to be Red Bull, even though you'll probably never get there, nor do you want to get there. But your marketing can actually turn into a monetizable product at the pinnacle of the content marketing heap.
I wonder if part of the recipe for that is a unique either stance or a very, I don't say niche brand, but it's a very, you know who you are and you do what you do, and there's a certain group of people that are going to watch it and you're okay with that, and you just own that space, and then those people are the ones that are going to pay.
On, yeah, what I like to call the big idea. So I think that the
Yeah.
best content marketing ladders up to a big idea. And
Mm.
there are two examples of this I always like to cite. One is IBM and one is GE. And the reason I cite them is these are multinational companies that make a zillion products. GE makes everything from irons to satellites and things that are for not consumers. GE's big idea is eco-imagination. So every single thing they do in marketing and in content ladders up to the idea of eco-imagination,
Huh.
which is a very broad idea. IBM, similar thing, a zillion products and technology, but they do all very different things. Their idea is smarter planet. So, their customer base is businesses, it's cities, it's governments, it's science, it's universities, and everything ladders up to smarter planet. So this is where content and branding really come together.
Right.
What's the big idea? What is the overarching mission statement or problem that your company is trying to solve? And that's when content can really connect with something and really find consistency across the broad spectrum of channel and audience and media and all the things that it has to do and achieve. And
Absolutely.
again, that's strategic underpinning, right? That's
Yeah.
not just execution, but it makes the
You thought that
execution a
out.
lot
You deliberately
easier.
thinking about the next steps, testing
Exactly.
and
Mm-hmm.
focusing, looking for stats, holding yourself accountable to the stats. I could see how you have your freedom here, but then okay, now we got to refine, really focus here.
And you got to know what to focus on in order
True.
to have focus.
Yeah, true. And even Red Bull. We were talking about that earlier. I love watching Red Bull TV. It's on the Apple TV. They've got Red Bull TV. There's people mountain climbing, which I'm a fan of. Then there's the extreme skiing. There's these guys that bike down mountainsides and cliffs in the desert.
Extreme sports,
Yeah,
but that's
I love
so
watching.
congruent with an energy drink, that is trying to appeal to young men 18 to 35, the most elusive demographic that there is. But
Really?
it's
So
the
tell me,
perfect message for the brand.
elusive brand, hard to pin down.
Hard to pin down. That age range is when young men are making decisions of the products and the services they're going to use for the rest of their life. But they're,
Wow.
outside of sports, it's very hard to capture them with advertising. They're
Outside of sports,
available
right?
all over the Red Ward, Red Bull has really managed to do it.
They really
And
have.
their CEO has said that he wants to be known for being a content company as much as he wants to be known for being an energy drink company. And I think they've achieved that.
I think so. For sure.
You will.
I love this talk about the the pinnacle of your maturity model, because this kind of gets us to beyond the pinnacle, which is the future. And I know you love just thinking about where is this going? And this came from even your past of going through different transitions of different types of media. So what does the future hold around content and around marketing?
So I'm doing a lot of research on this right now. I've published one report and have another coming up. I'm looking at where content is going to connect with AI, with artificial intelligence, and also with things in our environment like beacons and sensors.
Sure.
And content is not going to be what, it's going to be who are you, where are you, what are you doing there? And content is also going to be able to begin to create itself. There is machine learning that can be applied to content. So you won't have this problem. We've got to create more content. It's going to be for marketers instead. Who is our audience and how are we going to personalize content? So I'll give you a couple examples.
Yeah, please do.
Marantz has Internet of Things enabled speakers. When you buy a pair of Marantz speakers, if you turn them on and off 3 or 4 times, it's a predetermined number within a very tight margin of space, say 10 minutes, they'll send you an email that says, hey, it looks like you're having problems with your new speakers. Is there any way that we can be helpful?
Oh, interesting.
Because they how you're using the speakers. Another thing that they're doing with the speakers, which I think is super cool, and this gets back into product development, is you have to name your speakers when you install them. So, living room, bedroom, bathroom. So many of their audience, their install base, had speakers named bathroom. They took a flyer, developed a line of waterproof speakers, and marketed these speakers only to those people who had speakers named
Interesting.
bathroom. Email open rate for these, and any marketing automation person, I hope you're sitting down,
Oh,
40%. They sold 2 days. So it's that idea of
40% open rate
immediate,
on that?
yeah, yeah.
And what did they sell? You said
What
2 days?
email gets before waterproof speakers, but they marketed them only to people who they knew had speakers in their bathrooms.
Oh, only to them. Wow.
Yeah. So completely relevant, almost personalized marketing,
Yeah.
and they sold out the new line. They took a flyer. So now they're developing a line of really rugged speakers that they're going to only market to people who have speakers in their garage, which they know because those people name their speaker
Yes.
garage.
Oh man, I love that. I mean, some people get non-marketers can get creeped out by just how much people know,
You've
but
got
I
to
kind of love
account
it.
for the creep factor. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when people do say something like, how do you know I turned my speaker off 3 or 4 times in 10 minutes? They come back with an email that says, we aspire to give you the same level of service as a BMW. And we know you did this, and we would like to be the BMW of the speaker world. You can opt out of these messages, but we're here to
Sure.
help. So
Huh.
they've thought through to that next step of creepiness, and they
Yes.
try to assuage fears.
Yeah, that creepiness factor is a thing. We do a training at Cheshire here for the clients when they install marketing automation. We have a training specific for their sales team, so that
Mm-hmm.
when an email goes out, or just because you can see that someone's on the website right now, doesn't mean you need to call them up and tell them that personally. You've been on the pricing page for 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Do you have a question about pricing? You know, that's probably not the way to approach that. So we give them
Exactly.
strategies for things, ways to say it so that they don't come across like that. You definitely have to
Yeah, it's Big
protect the fact that
Brother.
you have that knowledge.
And there's data protection around this as well. But the report that I'm going to publish next month with my colleague Jessica Groupman, and it will be available for free on the Kaleido Insights website, is going to be about automated content. We've just finished our interview process for that. So we're looking at companies that create ways to automate content. And some of these are marketing automation companies, like a Salesforce, for example, that will actually write the content based on a universe of possibilities that
Wow.
is based on what that consumer was doing, who they are, maybe it's gender, maybe it's location, maybe it's a combination of those things, actions that they take.
Wow.
And this is going to make content marketers' jobs both easier and more difficult because it adds many layers of complexity.
Would you create like a shell template and then it dynamically puts in he, she, or picture?
Yep,
There's a little bit of
absolutely.
that now, but I could see you could really, the whole thing could be shaped.
And it can also be shaped around what the best-selling items on your website are. So it's
Yeah.
not just the customer and their history.
Yeah.
Another example of this that I love that is based on physicality is MGM Resorts in Las Vegas. If you're
Okay.
a member of the loyalty program, as many people are,
Sure.
when you check into the hotel, your smartphone is your room key. But also it's location aware throughout vast, as
Yes.
anybody who knows who's been to Vegas, this vast, vast, vast property. And because you're a member of the loyalty club, it knows your history. So when you go to Las Vegas, you might get an offer when you're near a restaurant and it's 8 o'clock, it's dinner time for a steak dinner discount. They might know I prefer going to shows, so I might get an offer for 2 tickets to Cirque du Soleil tonight.
Oh,
And this
wow.
is maybe not just on your history with the hotel and what you do when you're on the property, but maybe they ordered too much steak and they just got to offload some. So, hence the offer to do that, or the show isn't
Yeah.
sold.
Yeah.
So there's so many different factors that can come into play with the very contextually relevant offers that you get.
I love that location based or just the need based. It the whole point is to be more relevant to people, relevant to their situation, relevant to what they're looking for, what their problem is. If they don't have a problem, just being more relevant. I could see this just continuing to be, and I appreciate the relevance. And I guess I notice it sometimes, but I appreciate that. I mean, the whole goal is not to be creepy or to be spy-y. It's to be as
But to be
helpful.
helpful and
Yeah,
useful. There's
yeah.
an automotive dealership that has beacons that knows if you go right or left, so service or sales. Because if you just bought the car, you don't want an ad. Maybe
Yes.
it's an ad for an accessory or something like that. But it's all about better, more relevant, more contextually relevant marketing. And that's where ads are beginning to decline, whereas content is very, very much on the ascendant because there's so much more that you can do with it. It's not just the right person, the right message, the right time, but now it's the right place under the right conditions. Starbucks was telling me, I was doing research on real-time marketing, that they lost a lot of money when there was a hot snap in September and they were busy working on all their, pumpkin latte ads. And
Yes.
because they didn't have lemonade content ready when the temperatures soared into the 90s, they think they lost a lot of sales.
Interesting. Having the lemonade
Yeah.
at the ready.
At the ready, and lemonade content at the ready,
Lemonade content on the phone. I
just
mean,
in
the
case the
Starbucks
weather
app.
does something dippy, right?
Yeah, the Starbucks app has these challenges now, which are, gamifying buying coffee. Hey, make sure try out each one of these lattes or try out the new blonde. It sounds like they're
Mhm.
sponsoring this thing, but try out the new this, and you get 50 more stars. That kind of, and
Exactly.
it's
Right.
interesting, and you could say, hey, lemonade, it's hot. We know you're hot. Get some
Yeah.
refreshing, cool, organic lemonade at the right time.
Right. Instead, their marketing department was working on the warm drinks because of the season. So you got to be
Yeah.
prepared.
Yeah.
Or if you're a big box store, maybe you're selling snow tires in the Northeast, but lawn furniture down in Florida.
Right, and you wouldn't want to reverse that.
You wouldn't want to reverse that.
Oh, man. So, who are you? How did you acquire this amazing knowledge? And now you mentioned you worked in different media outlets. How did this all start?
Well, I like to say it's all media all the time because I've never worked outside the media industry. So I've been a print
Ah,
journalist. I've pretty much gone back and forth between being a journalist slash analyst and being a marketer my whole
okay.
career. So I have done both those roles, first in film, then in television. in print. I've never worked in radio. And then finally in digital. So I ran
Right.
some of the major digital publications covering digital advertising and marketing. As I said, I was a marketer at some of the major broadcast. SciFi Channel was a perfect incubation job because the internet was just beginning to gain some traction. And we
Yeah.
actually had an audience that was online and watching ads and
Yes.
participating rather than saying this is the future. It was the future.
Yeah, that'd be a
And
cool audience to
so
work with.
it was a cool audience. And so I went to both marketing and editorial analyst jobs, and I've settled on being an analyst because I love to watch. That goes back to my days as a film
Mm.
critic. And I love to prognosticate and look at the bleeding edge of technology. As you can see over my shoulder, I've got my bleeding edge phone camera.
Yes, yes. Well, you're so far in the future. You need the past to sort of anchor you back down into this dimension.
Right. It's really a time machine.
It's yes, yes.
Yeah.
It's a
And,
matrix.
the other thing is not just, writing the books and producing the research, but then using that knowledge to help companies prosper
Mm.
and solve the problems that they're having around all these challenges in digital marketing, in content. What kind of technology do we need for this? How do we educate our staff on that? So I do a lot of work both in Europe, where I am today, and in the United States. I go back and forth, speaking about this, writing about this, and consulting about this.
So much so that now you have a place to stay in Greece.
Well, I think I did more work in Europe that last year than I did in the States. And so I found myself staying for bigger chunks of time so I wouldn't have to fly back and forth. So yeah,
Sure.
2 bases of operation now. Can't complain. I'm lucky to be able to live the life that I live.
Oh, for sure.
But thanks to digital, it's completely doable.
And prior to having a place, were you not hotels? Were you like Airbnbs while you're staying, or was it just hotels for months and months?
Hotels, sometimes Airbnbs,
Yeah.
and in earlier chapters of my life, I've been based in Europe, so I have a lot of friends over on this side
Oh,
of the
good,
pond too.
good, good. Because I was going to say, the extended travel in hotels, eventually, it's great to just have a place to
No,
call your own.
yes, yeah. When you reach that highest level of frequent flyer, you start calling it the Duke.
Yeah. We were talking about that. I used to be there, not anymore, but it's a
Right.
double-edged sword, right? You get the upgrades or you get the treatment, but you also it means you're flying a lot and you're in the
It
air a
means
lot.
you're flying a lot. It means you're not always where you want to be
Who
a
want to
lot. But
be?
on the other hand, it means you're in very cool places a lot
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, and you're following the opportunity and you're following the bleeding edge. How do you, as an analyst, and I know you're a critic, I think earlier a film critic, and now you say you're a media critic. How do
Long
you,
ago,
what's that?
long ago, I was a film critic. Yes.
Okay, so film critic, do you have a favorite movie? That's the first thing I thought of when you told me you're a film critic.
I have a lot of favorite
A lot of
movies. I
favorites,
would
no doubt.
never just name one.
So we'll have maybe we'll search the Kaleido blog for critics' favorite movies, but maybe not.
Not on the
So,
Kaleido blog. You'd have to go deeper into the internet, but you'll find stuff if you do.
okay, all right. So good to know. So this critic, media critic, looking at things, poking things. How do you evolve? Because clearly you've evolved from back all the way to print journalism and moving through different mediums and obviously digital, but then digital isn't even digital. Now there's the AIs. How do you stay at that forefront? How do you, and also evolve? And maybe they're tied, maybe
I
they're
think
separate.
you just have to be interested in it. I'm
Mm,
interested in media and communication and how ideas are spread. And I guess I'm also interested in pattern recognition, which is a lot
ooh,
of what
yes.
analysts do. We conduct interviews, we do research, we do reading, and then we connect a lot of dots. I guess I like puzzles like that. I'm not very numeric, as I demonstrated a little while ago, although sometimes, of course, we do quantifiable research.
For sure.
And I also like the challenge. I work with 4 partners who are four very, very prominent analysts in their field, and we all have different areas of specialization. So
Mm,
my colleague, who's very well known, Jeremiah Aoyang, looks at business monetization strategies. We've all authored
mm,
research together. Right now, I'm working with Jessica Groupman, who is an expert on Internet of Things and AI and
Yeah.
automation. I'm expert on content, so we're getting together and looking at content automation. My other colleague, Jamie Szymanski, who looks at customer journeys and personas a lot, she and I co-authored my book together.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's great having these very smart, very engaged people who challenge you. They
Yeah,
encourage you, but they also, their job is to poke holes in your ideas and say, hey, did you think about this? Or maybe not so much that. It's fun. When it stops being fun, I stop doing it.
totally. It almost sounds like the dream of what an academic surrounding would be like is to be surrounded by the smartest, but also fun to collaborate with, the smart, great people. And I always find there's there's the quote of, don't be the smartest person in the room. Surround yourself with people that challenge you, that
It's
intrigue.
like playing tennis. You want to go up, right?
Yeah, yeah. Play Andre. Don't play the
Mhm.
4-year-old down the street. Yeah. So okay, so you're
But
surrounding
it's
yourself with
also academics without the ivory tower, because all of this is real world.
real
We work
world.
with real people, real businesses,
100%.
the cutting edge of technology. Academics doesn't move that quickly, and I need to move quickly or I frankly get bored. So maybe part of this is, an effort to keep myself challenged and not be bored on a
For
personal
sure. And
basis.
AI will do that. That'll just get the mind
Mhm.
going. You'll go from atomic particles to quarks and all sorts of
And who knows, I
forces.
might have to know more about physics soon, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I have to do a little brush up on physics to be able to do the next metaphor.
Got to start reading your dad's blog.
Yes, yeah, I'll connect you with it for sure.
Thank you.
Well, this has been great. I mean, so many learnings and the stories and hearing about, it sounds like it will behoove a company to work with you before they go and get that sponsorship that completely misses their audience in the wrong geo. So how do people connect, subscribe to your blog, Twitter? What are the best ways to connect with you?
So my personal website, RebeccaLieb.com, super easy.
Okay.
My company is KaleidoInsights.com. Twitter, I'm at Lieblink, that's Lieblank. And of course, I'm on Facebook under my name. I'm on LinkedIn under my own name. I'm pretty findable.
Pretty findable. That is great. And we'll put these in the show notes too for people and anyone that would prefer to just, you don't like people, you just want to read the notes. We have you can sign up for an email at the hardcoremarketing.com and you can get show notes from all the different takeaways that we had. And of course, if you prefer YouTube, you can go there too. But this has been awesome.
Casey, this has been so much fun. I'm so glad you reached out. I've enjoyed every second of speaking with you.
And across the entire Atlantic Ocean too. And it didn't seem like we had any
But
problems.
you wouldn't even notice, right?
You wouldn't, unless I keep talking about it because it's so cool and
Exactly.
fascinating. Oh,
Yes,
this
you
is
could have said
great.
I was on the other side of the same room and nobody would have
Right. You're
been
like
anywhere.
next door. Hey. That's so good. So what's next for you? Do you have any events coming up you're speaking at?
I do. I have several in Europe. The next one in the United States is going to be Marketa's Marketing Nation event
Ah,
in
yes.
early May in
The
San Francisco.
Fearless
So I'm really
Marketing
looking
event.
forward
That'd
to
be
that.
awesome. Okay. Well, great. Well, people will keep in touch on that and hopefully people can track you down at that. So thank you
Fantastic.
again.
Track me down and say hello.
Yes, thank you
Thank
again.
you.
And when people do say hello, don't
So
forget to
much fun.
say where you heard her on this awesome podcast. So thanks again.
Absolutely.
And to all you listen out there, this has been an amazing episode. If you liked it, share it with someone. If you didn't like it, share it with someone. And we'll see you on the next one.